welcome into Anita on the Mark. And this is a special edition. Why? We're coming to you from Hollandale Beach, Florida. I'd rather say Miami, Florida. It sounds more sexy. Beyond Media Group. You can see my hat. And of course, I'm sitting next to my co-host, and that's Nevin Shapiro. We went to college together, University of South Florida, the best female and male athletes. Of course, anybody who attended the University of South Florida over there, they will attest to that, of course. But this is the first time that we are seeing each other in person in 20 years.
More.
Nevin.
30 almost.
You think, oh, don't age me like
25,
that.
all right.
Dude,
well, I'll meet you in the middle.
Dude, I spent a lot of money on Botox. Don't help me like that. So it's just, it's so great to be with you.
Likewise.
Obviously, again, we appreciate everyone who follows our podcast, our show. You subscribe, you followed us all through the Diddy trial. And we were anxiously excited, maybe lack of a better word or phrase, to cover the Brian Kohberger trial. But he has taken a plea deal and he's pled guilty to, unfortunately, unaliving the 4 Idaho students. And of course, they're Kaylee, Ethan, Xana, and Madison, for 4 life sentences. He was facing potentially the death penalty, which, by the way, back in 2023 in Idaho, they re-implemented the firing squad. We're going to get into that a little bit later on the show. And also, he cannot try for an appeal. That is what he has agreed to. So no Brian Kohberger trial. I think the biggest travesty here is the fact that the parents might never know why. Why did this happen? But we've got a very special guest joining us, and that's Greg Yankow. Greg, welcome back. I know this is like your second or third time being on with us, and we're thrilled to have you on. And first and foremost, for those who have not seen your previous episodes with us, why don't you let the folks know how you know Nevin Shapiro, my friend?
Yeah, I just recently retired from the FBI after 23 years, and I was the lead investigator on the investigation into Nevin Shapiro and Capital Investments.
Exactly. So, and here we are.
Who
would have thunk? Certainly not me.
Very serendipitous.
But here we are. And a big reason why we wanted you on the program, again, we were preparing to cover the Brian Kohberger trial, and you were going to be a big part of that with us and for us. So you've done a deep dive into the investigation of Brian Kohberger, and your role was to bring that insight into our program. So let's start right there, okay? And let's talk about the copious amounts of evidence that was sitting for the prosecution against Kohberger. And we're going to dive into each and every one because I'm curious to get your expertise on it. But if you were knowing the evidence that the prosecution had on Kohberger, to you, obvious here, if you were the defense attorney for Brian, you would have told him to agree to this plea deal?
Absolutely. I think the evidence that they have, especially the K-bar knife sheath with his DNA evidence, how is that ever going to get into that apartment? In addition, the cell phone tower pings, placing him, I think, hours before the murders. I think as early as 11 p.m. the night before, his cell phone was pinging around that apartment complex and or residence, and then conveniently the phone was turned off. They're able to determine that through cell phone records that the phone was turned off right around the supposed times of the murder, within that 10-15 minute time frame. And then I think later on they ended up finding that he was trying to buy a replacement sheath for a K-bar knife on Amazon. Hard to dispute those 3 things as far as physical evidence goes.
Well, let's do a deeper dive, and really the one that I think that, granted, yes, finding the knife sheath at the crime scene, in the bedroom where he unalived Kaylee and Madison. This is a criminal justice degree. He had a criminal justice degree. He studied this, and again, you've covered and investigated criminals, one would think like, wow, he was an expert in this. How could he possibly leave that sheath behind? But I guess in the moment, not that I would, I would never know, but like, have you seen this type of situation before where, you think you've got somebody who's like outsmarting everyone, but yet in the moment they make a mistake like this?
It's always just one simple mistake that we usually find, especially people that are looking to do something like this. Not even necessarily capital murder, but even along the lines of financial crimes, of bank robberies, things like that. It's usually just one mistake that they overlooked. When I saw that he was purchasing a replacement sheath on Amazon for the K-bar knife, I wonder if he even realized that he left it at the crime scene. It seems like this was meticulously planned. He knew what he was doing. I guess, kind of knew what he was doing in trying to turn his cell phone off. But I wonder if he even recognized that he left it there.
The DNA that they found from the Q-tip out of the garbage outside of his parents' home, of course, that was his father's DNA, and they were able to link that with the blood that they found on the knife sheath. How often does that happen where you're able to identify somebody's DNA from either their sibling or their parent? How often is that utilized?
Yeah, it happens quite often. For most of the cases that I've seen or that I've worked with DNA, it's generally because they have a criminal history, and we always swap for DNA whenever we arrest someone. So that's usually how we get people. But getting DNA from trash cover, the worst job in the FBI, by the way. That's why we have new agents on probation for 2 years, so we could send them to do trash covers. Just picking through someone's garbage, worst job, but we do it all the time.
And another thing that was reported was that Kohberger was throwing his garbage out in the neighbor's garbage can. How often do you see that?
I've never seen that. But he did a bunch of really bizarre things that would have been difficult for the defense to overcome. Not only using his neighbor's garbage, but also changing his license plate on his white sedan. And I also saw a report that he tried to wipe his computer at Washington State University twice, the day before the murder and the day after the murder. He tried to forensically wipe it.
He was definitely messy.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Also reports that, he stripped his car clean of evidence, in fact, like disassembling everything inside. Also, I think, and this came out late, that the DoorDash driver that Xana had ordered food from later on, like at 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, identified him at the scene as well. Talk about the cell phone towers, pinged 23 times in that area, and also was pinged 4 months before this murder happened, anticipating or assuming that that's where he planned this all out, and trying to the surveillance, I would imagine that he had to do in order to really understand the timeline and when this would be best suited for him to try to pull this off.
Yeah, the cell phone tower data. So within the FBI, I don't know how the state of Idaho does it, but within the FBI, we have specific teams that do that for us. So we have people that are experts at doing that. I got to work with it quite a bit when I was flying surveillance aircraft for the FBI, where we would actually bring those teams on board our airplane and turn the airplane into allow the airplane to ping off cell phones. And it's extraordinary. It is really advanced over, I would say, the last 6 to 8 years, where it's almost to within a few feet of where the cell phone is that we're able to identify it. It's remarkable, and not just that evidence. I also found that the crime scene processing within the residence was amazing, at least what I thought, and substantial. And the people that do that also within the FBI, we have expert teams, our evidence response team that will go in and process that. Most states, I'm sure the state of Idaho has the same thing. It's remarkable. It's not for people like me to do. Like your standard investigator isn't taking DNA off of a K-bar knife sheath or pulling fingerprints. The people that do this are extremely well versed in it. They train year round to do it, and they are experts in presenting this evidence in trial. So he would have had a very uphill climb with the evidence that they have.
Well, also in following this, like I think a number of us were, captivated by everything that was unfolding. Was a, the siblings and the friends became aware that these murders had happened early in the morning around 9 a.m. Police were not called until noon. And again, like, no disrespect to Idaho, but we're talking about an Idaho police department, and they've said, like, we rarely have murders. I mean, we're pulling people over and giving them street citations. So now you've got a lot of inexperienced police officers that aren't used to this type of crime. What's the time frame of them? Now you've got to worry, like, how many friends and students were walking through the house. How did the Idaho police handle the crime scene when they were first found? And then how does somebody like you and your expertise come in to handle maybe a tainted crime scene, Greg?
Yeah. So two things there. The first, there's been a lot of reporting. I've read a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things on YouTube about the fact that the police were not called for, I think it was over 7 hours. But I did go back and listen to the 911 calls, and they clearly did not know that there was a murder that took place before they made that call. I think in the initial call, and I can't remember which of the roommates made the call, but I think she first said that one of the victims passed out and was unresponsive, and they didn't find out until later in that call that the person wasn't breathing at all and that something horrible had taken place. So I didn't give. I think a lot of the reporting on that was maybe a little overblown. They weren't aware of what happened. It sounds like they were out really late at bars, ordered food. I think they had DoorDash come at 4 a.m. One of the residents. But the other thing, if you look at, I lost my train of thought there, Anita. Where were we? What was the second?
No, just I was curious, like, in regard to, like, the crime scene being tainted.
Oh yeah, the crime. So tainted. So I can give you a specific example of one of the worst responses I had to do in my career was responding to one of the crime scenes in upstate New York during the right after the Buffalo Mass supermarket shooting. I had to respond to one of those crime scenes. There were people at the crime scene when I arrived. I was the one of two agents to arrive on the scene first, and we literally just closed the entire crime scene, the entire building, for 24 hours until we could transport teams from. I was working in the FBI Albany division at the time, so we were about 3 hours away outside of Binghamton, New York, where we had to have teams respond to. So we closed the building for 24 hours until we can get teams in place, get the equipment in place, and allow people to enter. So it's not uncommon at all. But the fact that police didn't respond for 7 hours, or a phone call wasn't made until 7 hours to get police on the scene. You would have some tainted evidence because clearly the other residents of the apartment complex were around the victims, were trying to see if they can get a response from the victims. So there would be some tainted evidence in and around each of the victims, but clearly able to get DNA off of the K-bar sheath it didn't have much of an effect on the investigation.
You know, again, my heart goes out to the families, because when something this horrific happens, and I would imagine if these were our children, we'd want to know why. Why did this happen?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest. I mean, that's really why we're even having the conversation, right?
Right. What was the motive? And what's really sad, Nevin, is that the parents, as of right now, we don't know if the parents will ever know, because he's agreed to this plea deal. So there will not be a trial, and a lot of the evidence, all the files have been sealed, which I'm curious as well if at any point in time they'll be unsealed and available for the families to review. But any information in regard to the research that you've done, Greg, in regard to the relationship that the victim, that Brian Kohberger may have had with any of the victims, and any insight in regard to motivation here?
Yeah. So the only thing that I've been able to find from what I've been looking through is I think the FBI seized his personal cell phone, and they were able to find he had dozens of random pictures of female college students from Washington State University on his phone, and I think that they connected 3 or 4 of those females to at least one of the victims. And as of right now, I think that's the only connection they have with Kohberger to the victims.
Also, what was reported was that not only were all 4 killed with the K-bar knife, but that Kaylee's face was beaten in so badly that she was unidentifiable. And everything that I'm hearing and I'm reading about that is that, you know, that's a level of anger. And there's some assumption, again, this is all assumption, that she really was the main target. What's your thoughts on that? If you
Yeah,
do
I think I read.
you see one victim, I guess, more.
Taking the brunt.
Yes, exactly.
I think I read some reporting on that as well. So I definitely agree with you on that. And I feel that it also had to have been targeted in some way, shape, or form, because I think I also saw reporting that one of the residents, Kohberger, walked right past her after committing the murders to exit the residence, didn't look at her. She was frozen in fear, standing in the doorway to her room. He walked right past her. She identified him as, I think, having bushy eyebrows and wearing a face mask. And he never looked at her, never touched her, and exited the residence. If it was just a random, yeah, go ahead, Nevin.
What I was going to say is, I mean, it's quite possible that the other 3 victims were just guilty by association, or
Yeah,
victims
wrong.
by association. You know.
All right. So what happens now? Right? Like I said, the files are sealed. Do we live in a world where, when this is all said and done, and he goes to jail, these files will be unsealed, at least for the parents?
You know, I don't know if that will happen. One thing I was disappointed about, I don't know if you were able to watch any of his actual plea hearing in front of the judge. The judge never even asked any of those questions. I don't know if it's not allowed in the state of Idaho, but certainly try to find some motive, ask some question when he's accepting responsibility for these. He literally just said yes to committing the act, but there. Maybe if the judge just could have asked, you know, did you know this person? What was their association with this person? And it's just a lot of questions for the families. I know the families were not happy with the plea deal, and just a lot of unanswered questions right now.
So July 23rd will be the sentencing, right? And from what I understand, and again, just based on, previous sentence hearings that I've watched, Brian Kohberger will have an opportunity to stand up and speak for himself. Do we anticipate that to happen?
Well, my first guess would be he won't say a word. I don't think he's going to say anything. I'm not sorry, this and that. He got the deal of a lifetime to not get fired on. I see him saying nothing.
Greg?
So I go back and forth when I think about what he may or may not do at his sentencing. I've seen reporting that he is somewhere on the autism spectrum. I've also seen reporting that the defense wanted to bar the prosecution from mentioning anything about him being a psychopath or a sociopath. Certainly, if he does have sociopathic tendencies, he's probably going to want to speak, whether his counsel wants him to or not. So I guess we'll see.
So again, sentencing is on the 23rd, and from what we understand, more than likely will be sentenced to a prison in Idaho, a maximum security prison in Idaho that has houses a number of death row victims or criminals. Chad Dable is one of them. He killed his wife and his second wife's two children. And this is where I think, Greg, and I think you'd agree with me, I think this is where Nevin's expertise comes into our discussion here, right? And, Nevin, kind of share with folks out there, again, he's agreed to 4 life sentences. He can't appeal. He's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. Knowing what this prison is like, what are your thoughts in regard to what happens for Brian moving forward?
Well, first of all, he's in going to a state prison. He's not going to a federal prison. It's hellacious. I haven't been there, but I know enough and have shared enough dialogue with others who have extensive experience in these places. Not death row type places. Otherwise, they would have never come out, and I would have never been in touch with them. But he's a trophy inside immediately. He is a trophy.
Explain what
a trophy is going to
trophy.
be. So a lot of these guys, if not most, all these guys, for the most part, are going to be serving life sentences. They'll never see the light of day. And if you're going to go out, you might as well go out on your sword with in a blaze of glory. And taking a guy like this out is a trophy. You get a trophy, and you'll be looked at there. And
so you're saying other guys, you're saying other inmates in jail will look at
they're going to try to kill this guy.
If I off Brian Kohberger, it's a trophy for me.
It's a trophy for
I get prison cred.
Well, not only that, there's so much angst and hate and vitriol towards this individual that people might actually start sending money to the person who takes him out and putting it on his prison books.
And that happens.
Oh yeah, regularly. It's happening right now with Louis Mangione, the kid who allegedly killed the United Healthcare guy.
Right.
Yeah, he's a rock star, not a murderer in the eyes of today's world.
So Greg, I mean, your thoughts on him going to this maximum security prison, and what do you think his chances are of being unalived?
Yeah, so that's definitely not my wheelhouse. So Nevin has a much better picture of that. Is my role as an FBI special agent. Once we get a prosecution in a case, really once we do an arrest in the case, we really hand over custody to the U.S. Marshals. What experience I do have in going into federal prisons and going into state prisons, I feel much safer for my subjects and for myself and anyone I'm with walking into a federal prison than I ever do walking into a state prison.
Why is that?
That's an understatement, for one.
What? But explain.
Yeah. So I'm going to explain.
Our audience has not been where you've been, Nevin.
Federal prisons are handled, and of course, I've never think I've been in a state prison, but I will tell you, a federal prison is handled with unity and like it's order. It's like it's a regimented situation. It's government regulated. The state is handled differently. It's just not the federal government, and there's just a lot more control. There's a count time nationally when you're in the federal system, which means on a weekday, you're going to be counted at, 5 a.m., 4 p.m., and 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., depending where you are. There's a national count. And on the weekends, they do it more than that. And then 3 a.m. as well, in the middle of the night when you're sleeping. I don't know what the procedure is in the state situation, but I can just tell you the Fed system, not that there's not a lot of activity, stuff going on in the federal system, but the state is like a real zoo. That's a zoo.
And he's going to a zoo.
He's not only going to a zoo. Let me tell you, the firing squad was a better alternative.
But
point blank.
Okay, but let's rewind, because is he going to be in general population? Is he not going to be in general population?
So all right, so let me give you. I could probably answer that quicker than Greg. So they may have to put him in isolation, but he can't spend the next 60, 70 years in isolation. So at some point, he's going to be in general population. He's going to be in general population.
Whether it's for 30 minutes,
whatever
hour,
it is, he's going to
a day. Something.
People are going to be able to get near him, and there's going to be time.
Is that a choice that he will be? Will they offer him that choice?
No, they won't, because at the end of, and I would, so let me speak from my own personal experience.
Please.
So based on my high profile subject matter in my case, most specifically after my case, the University of Miami situation, I became a protective custody inmate. It's called a CIM inmate, Central Inmate Monitoring, CIM. And what happens is you're monitored very differently than everybody else. And it's a hands-on situation. Like I couldn't, just everything, your phone calls, everything's just handled differently. And I just think that what's going to happen with him is he's going to inevitably land in general population. He has to land in general population. He's not going to, and he's not.
But
so
again,
special.
Not just for an hour a day or whatever. Like not.
No, like it. Depending what the rules are in that prison, if it's a 23-1 lockdown, and I doubt it is in a state prison where they're locked down 23 hours a day, they have an hour to come out to use their core links, and I don't know what the system is in the state situation, but like the shower, this and that, you have an hour to do everything. I don't know what the terms are in that thing, but if that's not the thing, if that's not their protocol, and it's not a 23-1 situation, and it's work, like a work prison, he's going to be out 40 to 60 hours a week working or doing, medial jobs just to keep his mind busy. That's the process. That's what it is. It's the worst. When they say doing time, they say don't let the time do you. He's doing forever time.
And so you believe that him taking the death penalty would have been better than what he's going to be experiencing moving forward.
He thinks he won, and I'm telling you, he lost.
And you don't timeline. How long do you think that he does last before potentially a possible inmate could get to him as a trophy?
It could be a day or it could be 10 years. He's going down. And if he doesn't go down, there's going to be multiple attempts on him. I promise you.
Wow. Greg?
Yeah, Nevin, about that. I have heard in my position of there being targets put on specific people. Generally, I throughout my career, I've heard it a lot with gang members, but certainly anyone involved in a high-profile case. I mean, we were just talking about, how P. Diddy would have been handled had he received a life sentence. I think this is very similar, where he's going to be known when he walks into there. And as Nevin said, he knows better than us. Is it going to be a positive or a negative for him? And I think based on the facts of this case, it's certainly going to be a negative.
Let me reiterate even deeper. So there's certain crimes, certain charges you can get charged with and then sentenced for, and you sort of look like an OG inside. Like you'll get street cred. His crime is the opposite. He killed kids. He is a walking bullseye. Walking bullseye. They want him. I'm telling you, they want him in there.
Let's end on this, because this is conversation that Nevin and I have had off air, and I think it is interesting, Nevin, in regard to your story and how you were able to, what was your secret sauce in order to, and your story is so interesting, but not only were you able to survive, but you made friends, and you were, um,
Yeah, I mean,
mean,
here I'll jump in.
yeah, please.
You know, if
Like, how are you able to survive the system?
Yeah.
Nevin really is
So-
it.
So, all right. So, you know, I'm certainly not bragging, because this is not like winning a Nobel Peace Prize. It's like being the smartest kid in summer school, right? It's not like a thrill. It's not a real pat on the back. But anyway, I have a very unique personality. Let's just say.
Understatement. I can
Yeah.
attest.
I make friends quick. I don't see color. I'm not judgmental of others. Not now, but I really could play ball. That was a huge asset. So I was a needed entity inside, and I had the ability. I just had a high acumen, or have a high acumen, and I was able to assist guys with certain medial needs that they couldn't handle on their own, such as reading, writing, communicating, legal work. You know, you find your niche within of how you just fit in, and you're not the show, you're just part of the show.
So 3 reasons why. Number 1, your crime wasn't horrendous like
No.
Brian Kohberger.
No.
Number 2, your intelligence was needed and offered
Mm-hmm.
to those that you served with. And number 3, you were a stud athlete.
Yeah. And number 4, I wasn't a rat. And that means everything. And the guy that's on the screen with us can attest to that, because he's the one who investigated me. And I went in there solo dolo, and took that beating right to the grill.
I can attest to that. We gave Nevin many opportunities to roll other people up into the investigation, and he would never do it.
Contrary to the internet's belief.
Yeah.
But I'm not here about me. We're talking about a guy who just took out 4 young kids.
We're talking about Brian Kohberger.
Yeah.
Greg, again, such unbelievable insight. You know, I say this time and time again whenever I do a show with Nevin and our very special guests like you. I feel like I always leave here more in the know, more intelligent, and I appreciate your time and your expertise, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita.
Yeah, great seeing you, Greg.
You too, Nevin. Take care, my friend.
You got it. For everybody out there, again, thank you so much for watching, subscribing. Please comment. We will be back, of course. July 23rd is the sentencing. So we will be back with more Brian Kohberger coverage after the sentencing. You can guarantee that. And also, Nevin and I are going to be coming your way with some special shows about Nevin's time in jail with some of his very special guests that he just.
Can I tip off the people a little bit?
Go ahead.
So, you know, there's true crime's become like a real like spectacle. Everybody's on the draw for like, wow, this isn't. I'm pretty confident that we're going to put together a show. We haven't come up with the name, the title. We're working on the logistics of it, but this is going to be an OG special, and it's not going to be just relegated to like gangster. It's going to have just elements. People are going to love it. I know it.
Nevin's got a fascinating story to tell, and we will be telling many of those snippets right here on that podcast in the next few months, let alone hopefully years to come. Greg, thank you again. Really do appreciate it. For myself and Nevin, again, a like, subscribe, watch, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you very much.